This is our weekly conversation with food and beverage experts on all things food and beverage. Today's guests are here. They're a cocktail expert and a culinary expert, and they've combined their experiences together to create Cocktail Curations. Nicole Hassoun and Parra are here from Washington, D.C. I love that town, to talk to us about how to create a virtual cocktail experience, taking their experience from doing them live and now doing them virtually. So welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. So I gave very little background about you guys, and because I want you guys to share your backgrounds with us, because I think they're so intriguing, especially Nicole with an engineering degree. So you both give us a little bit of idea of how you came about where you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think it feels like making drinks is kind of what I was just meant to do in life. And that seems so corny to say, but I never was able to get away from it. I started really professionally making cocktails while I was in school. And I was bartending at this little gin bar in Woodley Park in Washington, D.C. I honestly, truly fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the spirit of gin more so than anything else. I fell in love with the creativity behind making spirits and making cocktails, and using a cocktail to really kind of like make connections with people and really kind of introduce people to things that they hadn't ever experienced before. And that's what really turned me on and made me this like really kind of obsessive person with food and drinks. I mean, food I've always been obsessed with. And then from there, I finished school and kept bartending, and had won an award for best bartender in DC back in 2014, I think. And then started distilling. So able to take kind of that engineering background and apply it to a more practical science, one that gets you drunk. And so I started making gin, and it was really a fun learning experience, and really got into the education side of it as well, which was awesome. It's everything that I love, is just like teaching and learning. And then, one of my gins won best gin in the world, which is really exciting.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. It's really crazy. And it was a really funky gin. I mean, that gin, we actually distilled it with actual wet harissa. So Aleppo pepper, olive oil.
Wow.
It sounds weird, but that was in there with a lot of fig and hibiscus. And it was really complex and interesting. And then throughout this whole time, T and I have worked together on and off for over 10 years now in different events capacities. And eventually then we worked together at the distillery. She was the director of marketing and events there. And we just decided, it's time to really take our passions. We work so well together. It's time to take our passions and give that to the world. So we joined forces now 2 years ago, and put Cocktail Curations out there, and really just took our passion, our knowledge and excitement, and just want it to touch every person. And that's, it's been cool.
That's so fun.
Good partnership.
It's a really good partnership.
And T, your background is in the hotel side, well, chefing and catering and hotel. And
after college, I went to culinary school, and just, I've always just loved the food side of things. So went to culinary school, Académie de Cuisine, here in DC. And, I was working in restaurants, and I got my degree in psychology. So, I loved food and working behind the line and such, but I also missed the interaction. And so going into hospitality was kind of that perfect merge for me, which was being able to still be a part of the culinary world, but being able to interact with all of the clients and such. So I went into catering, and then I went into hospitality at a hotel. So I was director of social catering at the Mandarin Oriental in DC. And then after that, I was an event planner. So that was about 10 years. And then at that time is when I met Nicole, because a lot of my events were so food and beverage oriented, and I needed really great mixologists and really bartenders, but also people who were educational. And someone had suggested a gin goddess, someone known as the gin goddess named Nicole Hassoun. And I reached out to her, and Nicole and I just kind of fell in love working with each other. I mean, she just was so knowledgeable that it was a great kind of experience for our guests, and just took it to other levels. And then when Nicole became a partner at a local distillery, she reached out to me and said, we're looking for a director of events and marketing. And so I went and joined them. But honestly, it's just been different ways for us to incorporate our passion for culinary, mixology, science, hospitality. So I think that's basically our business.
That's so fun. And when we go to events, when we were in person, the culinary side was just, here's your behind, especially the bar. It was like, here's your bartender behind that wooden,
right,
brown wooden bar, and with the wines up on the corner and the glasses on the other side. And most of the times it was just the call brands, right? And just kind of have this, but you all with your live events with the Cocktail Curations really enhance that, right?
Right. Yeah, because we really felt that was where, when you go to a special event, it was where we saw a lot of limitation, which was a lot of times you're handed a specialty cocktail and it's supposed to kind of fit for everybody. And it's that drink that you have and you say, oh, that's nice. And then you lay it down and you go to the bar and you get a glass of wine, or you get a gin and tonic or something. And we really wanted to bring to the special events world an experience that allowed you to feel like you were at the bar, where you could say, I want something that works for my taste palettes, but also I may not want to imbibe. I want something with less spirit and still not feel like I'm drinking a lemonade. Right, Nicole?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, for us, it's all about customization and education, right? I mean, I know we keep hitting on that education, but it's so important for us that anybody that works with us, all of our bartenders and all of our staff, we want them to be able to be a vessel that shares this excitement and knowledge with every person in the event as well. So we understand that an event, there's so many things going on. There's so many other activations. We're just one part of it, but we want to be that equal or exciting part in that event that makes people keep coming back, keep talking about the bar, saying, I've never tried this before, or I don't drink, and somebody made me a cocktail or a non-alcoholic cocktail that like blew my socks off. That really taught me that you could make these really complex non-spirit forward drinks, and really make me feel like I'm part of the event as well. And I think that's our whole goal. That's the most important thing. When we're on site, it's just making every single person feel like they're taken care of, no matter what. No request. We're not going to like laugh you out of here, say we can't do it. Obviously, right. Unless we physically can't do something. Right. But we just want you to feel like, if we don't have exactly, your option, like, let me teach you, let me show you why we do this. And it's a fun, we want it to be a fun event for people to come to us and talk about it. Conversational. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it adds so much more versus just going up and saying, hey, I've got this for you, or here's the bottle of water or whatever. And it's a conversation piece just as much as food is a conversation piece as doing that into adding and enhancing that event. Now, how have you taken that from the in-person side to the virtual side?
Kind of just the same way. I mean, so much of virtual for us is trying to connect, and in the same way that we did with in-person events. So, we're hosting virtual events. All of our events that were in person became either virtual or they're rescheduled. And a lot of them with the virtual is being able to engage, right? So we're all on Zoom all the time with conferences and such and meetings. And we kind of adapted quickly because we were already teaching cocktail classes. And so to be able to do it well for a virtual experience was to find ways where we were able to like really engage with each of our guests, which meant, sending out information with everyone and basically saying like, meet us, have your camera on, have conversations with us. So they may spend an hour with us, but it's never just a like sit here and listen to us. It's feel free to turn on your mic, ask the questions while we're teaching so that we feel like we're in the same space together.
Yeah. And that's a big thing with these kind of Zoom conversations, and we're on StreamYard now, but getting that engagement. And before we got on, and the last couple of days, I've been Googling how to host a virtual event, virtual cocktail reception. And the only things that I'm seeing are pick the technology, send out your invitations, pick the cocktail that you want to make, and then send everybody their stuff. But talking about that, making that engagement is so much more of that experience. And do your bartenders have a lot of personality as well, or is it you two doing that, Nicole? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, it's mostly the two of us. I mean, and luckily we really like talking to each other. So if there's ever dead air, we think each other are hilarious. So it works out pretty well. I mean, I think the key is make sure that you come with enough information. So go above and beyond. Like the most important thing, and one of our favorite things to do, is when we're teaching a cocktail, right? We tend to err on the side of classic cocktails because there's so much to learn the building blocks of a classic cocktail and then go from there, right? If you want to be creative, learn the classics first and then go from there. So we often are teaching the classics, which is awesome because the classics have amazing histories to them. So I think something that we've found that's really entertaining and a little bit different is make sure you do the research on the history and then present that history in a fun way that people can kind of digest. And then, they can then share with other people, give them something that they can take away, not only, the knowledge on how to make a drink, but where that drink came from, some maybe other knowledge on how the spirit is made. I mean, we like to keep it pretty fluid so that, if somebody says, oh, well, wait, what is gin, or why is whiskey different than rye? Or, I mean, we get all of these questions all the time. Making sure you have that little bit of knowledge or reference, that your guests can take away, feeling like they've really learned something from the experience. It makes it more memorable for everybody involved. Mm-hmm. It makes them kind of excited to talk about the things and probably try the cocktail again when you have a little bit more of that knowledge of what everything is in there. So I think that's an important part, is kind of the research and the fun history that goes with spirits and cocktails. It's something that really fills up time and, gets people talking. If there's a lot of dead air, everybody's, nervous to chat, you can really, it starts the conversation.
Okay. Yeah. So when you see, and this just popped into my head, but you see all the different brands coming out with these different flavors versus just the plain version of it. Do you like using those flavored brands as well as, I know you're very good and very conscious of sustainability and using lemon peels and the juices and things like that. Yeah. So are you using more all natural things and flavoring the gin yourself? Or are you using the flavored liquors?
We err on the side of, we like to create our own flavors to build around a really well-made spirit. If that really well-made spirit is lemon flavored or orange flavored, I think then we build around that. Everything we do is to let things shine. We want, if we're making a cocktail with spirit, we want that spirit to be front and center and shine and blend beautifully with all of the other ingredients that we put in there. So I don't think we'll ever turn down a drink. We'll never turn down a spirit. No. We're open to everything, but
it's important for us to have those ingredients that we enjoy, and when we look at all those flavors, that's where the culinary does come in, right? And when Nicole, from a distillation point of view, we're always playing with the flavors, but we also don't like to muddle too many flavors on top of one another so that you can't enjoy it. Enjoying a great spirit, we have, because we come from a distillery background, we have a lot of respect for what the distillers have done with their product, with their spirits. And so we're usually just trying to find beautiful spirits and curating something that you can then appreciate the cocktail, but also the spirits. So, it's really kind of fresh ingredients. It's important to us.
That's good. Yeah. I mean, and fresh, when we're talking about just using whole food, plant-based foods, I mean, it does add a whole nother level of flavor to it. And not to say that, I mean, I've went to a distillery here in San Francisco, or no, I'm not in San Francisco. I went to gin distillery in San Francisco years ago. And it was so interesting how they were infusing the different flavors of flowers and things in it. And it just it does add something to it. So, yeah. So what are things that I'm sure you've been to many a cocktail events, in person and online. What are some mistakes that you've seen done that could be turned around to make a better virtual cocktail experience?
Yeah, I think if we're doing talking virtual cocktail experience, I think a lot of it comes down if there are kits being sent out ahead of time. I think thinking about the quality of the kit is everything, right? I mean, people have probably, especially if you go to a lot of events or a lot of, things in the food and beverage industry, I can't tell you how many branded glass cups, plastic cups I've had that I'll probably never use, and, shakers I'll never use. And I think, for us, it's so important that if we're doing something, we want to give you something that you're going to use 100 to 1,000 times again. You know what I mean? We want to give you the quality ingredients and the ability to do it again. So for me, what I found is a lot of times the kits that are sent out don't have that kind of full, complete feeling to me. Meaning that, things are missing or things don't quite come together in the way that maybe they were initially intended. So I think really thinking through that part was a big thing for us, and it's difficult, but it was part of what makes it, to me, a more full feeling of virtual event, at least.
Okay. Yeah, and it's just knowing our audience. We spend a lot of time before we get on making sure that we are serving the purpose of what they need for the virtual event.
Okay.
And so it's very much kind of knowing, is it a happy hour? Is it a handful of friends who are getting together and they just don't want to hear us talk and we're just gabbing away? Or is it a group that is really looking to know that knowledge? If they want to know the science base, the distillation. But so much of it is being able to allow that interaction, that conversation, because I feel like you can really Google how to make a cocktail any way you want. So if you're having us on because you want to know more, you want to ask your questions and understand it at a deeper level.
That's a really good point, because it's not just here to have you. I mean, we could just put a bartender in the corner of a room and have you there and not pay attention to it. But what you bring to the table is a lot more entertainment aspect, which no idea why this just popped into my head, but Tom Cruise in Cocktail did.
Yes.
And, and he's doing all those tricks. Nicole, do you do all those tricks?
Oh, no. The flair bartending, I wish. I mean, I like to spin a bottle in my hand, but I am not, I don't think I'm that good at it. No.
And what was the other one with all the ladies? Oh my God.
Oh, dancing on top of the bar.
Yes, exactly.
Coyote Ugly?
Yeah.
I mean, I have been on top of a bar before, but no. That was many years ago.
Yeah, I definitely have fallen off one too. So I don't suggest it for myself.
No. I'm not as good at the flipping, but I do think, keeping people's attention with cool presentation style is key. So, big hand movements, it's constant.
But we do a lot of smoked cocktails and molecular components and things that are intriguing, but true to why we're making the cocktail versus just dancing.
I'm pretty clumsy. I mean, let's be honest. I'm kind of a clumsy person.
And you're both working out of your homes, and you've got built-in bars into your homes and do this live?
Yeah, you see T's bar behind her.
Uh-huh.
That's awesome, just right in her living room. Mine isn't that nice, but I also have a nice little makeshift bar in the house, which is it's really been really fun. Entertaining for very few people, but
Yeah, but we can't wait to get back into
yeah,
in-person events. I
yes,
mean,
Yeah.
it doesn't replace that. So we're really looking
it
forward to
does
that
not.
day.
Yeah.
And what would you do differently based on, our current conditions going back in-person events? How would you
Yeah.
change those cocktail experiences?
It's funny because when everything happened a year ago, actually just next week is going to be a year when everything was shut down.
Right.
And our business model, Nicole had another business that she basically made tonics, bottled tonics and such. And so much of what we were doing with our business plan was events.
Mm-hmm.
But then we were also talking about bottling our cocktail bases and still making botanical waters, which we can touch on, but they're zero proof beverages,
Okay.
and tonic waters. And so we were always talking about what we want to bottle it. It was part of our logo. We had designed it out, but we wanted to make sure that on site was where it needed to be first. And so when everything happened, it was an easy kind of switch over and saying, okay, well, let's move that forward, and on site we'll wait a little bit. And so we were able to bottle everything very quickly and be able to ship out cocktail bases, which then helped our kits, our virtual experiences, because we were able to send out a lot of these bases. But I think what's going to change for us for on-site is now that we have this entire repertoire of cocktail bases that we make that are pasteurized and ready to go, I think it's going to help us a lot with even sustainability, because there's going to be less waste.
Right.
We're not batching just for the event. They will be, but then there are things that we can now just pasteurize, have it in the bottles, and be able to reuse.
That's a great, I like
Yeah.
that. Touching on cocktail cocktail making and for different events, this is talking about dietary restrictions, and I know we chatted a little bit about the cocktailsafe.org website that Camper
Mhm.
English does, but Nicole, with that background, and T, I know you've got some kids with food allergies. How do
Yeah.
you incorporate that into your mixes, and when you're and the two of you are doing that now, but how do you mix the different flavors, or know if it meets the needs of somebody or doesn't meet the needs?
Yeah, I mean, definitely having that original knowledge of every piece that's in your cocktail. That's the most important thing, right? Really having
Yeah.
an understanding of what are these things that are problem allergens for a majority of people. We're not talking about people with like more serious kind of like really lots and lots of allergies, but the basics, so that we know that we can inform ahead of time, right? So if it's a larger event and we're not making it specifically for a certain person, it's just making sure that everyone has the knowledge of what are allergens, what are common allergens, and how to avoid if somebody has this, and making sure that the question is asked. But I like to say I love, our favorite thing is like changing things to suit a certain person, right? I mean, that's our
Mhm.
whole goal. It's like we want to create something that you haven't had before that is going to blow your mind. And I think, I take it back to like when I was bartending at the gin joint. I had this really wonderful woman who came in who had every allergy under the sun. She had a business card that had all of her allergens on it, but she loved fine dining. She loved cocktails. She loved it all, but she just
Mhm.
really, I mean, it was really deadly serious. And so she came in, she's like, I'm really sorry. I just heard that, you could maybe make a drink, that maybe they could avoid some stuff. Like these are my allergens. Could you make me something? And it was such a fun and educational moment to have to really, really consider every single ingredient, and then how each of those single ingredients play together to create this beautiful thing that isn't going to hurt somebody. And I don't think we ever thought twice about it. I mean, I know, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we are in it to make people happy. And allergens are just that's something that they live with every day. It's something you live with every day, and just making sure that you have a good understanding of the product that you're using. We're not just, none of our bartenders and none of us are just throwing things together and slinging it and, and saying good luck. We have the full, we want to know more about each piece, and we want to make sure that it's something that, everybody can enjoy.
Yeah. And spirit training is very important in that sense too, because for our team, understanding what a whiskey is, what gin is, knowing that juniper is in gin and such, those are things that a lot of people may not realize are major allergens for many of them. Like my kids were born with a handful of different allergens. But so much for me is wanting them to still be able to have that experience. I don't want to just keep them in a box where they, can only have X, Y, and Z. And for events, it's the same. You want to be able to have everybody enjoy it. Nicole and I are very particular in the way that we eat and drink. And so for me, I'm just a difficult person when it comes to drinking. Like I have certain ideas on what I like. And then it's either too sweet, it's either too this or that. And so I understand it, and I want to be able to give people that same enjoyment.
Okay. So on that note, and going back to designing these virtual events, what are your best practices in creating that thing up, knowing that information up front before you send the kits to people? Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's always in the conversation. I mean, before we don't really do a lot of just like plug and play. Before the virtual event, it is multiple or one long kind of conversation of how do we best suit everybody in this group. And so yeah, it's absolutely making sure that allergens are discussed, if there are any allergens, and how do we substitute. So, there might be a case where 90% of the people are, 9 out of 10 of the people, want a certain drink, but one person has an allergy to lemon. Then if that's the case, we will ship out the kits, except for the 9 of them get the same kit. One of them will get something that is a substitute. So if it's, removing the lemon from the cocktail base, or they have, it's all grapefruit or whatever it is. I mean, we are 100% there to make sure that you have an equal experience no matter what. So it's all part of the conversation ahead of time.
Yeah. And I think when it comes to the cocktail world, this is where, we don't assume that everybody drinks alcohol. Or wants a high proof alcohol cocktail. So, for us, we always assume that there's going to be several people who don't imbibe and would prefer to have a 0 proof cocktail. And that's probably one of the major things for us, which is when we teach every version of it as also a 0 proof option, so that you're able to really understand proper ratio, right? Like when you take that spirit component out of it, what is it that you're missing, right? That we need to now put in, which is a lot of times bitter. Bitter component is a huge one. And that's why a lot of times when you have a 0 proof beverage, and we're making it for you, we're trying to pull in all of the senses, all the 5 senses, the bitter, the sour, the sweet, the umami. And that makes it a much more complex beverage without the alcohol.
Oh, I love that. And okay, so now all these ideas just keep popping into my head. Now you're sending out these kits, and I know I saw on a Facebook group, shipping the alcohol across state lines, or how do you manage that?
Yeah. Well, luckily what we produce is cocktail bases. And so most of our kits basically incorporate that cocktail base, unless they decide they want to make everything fresh a la minute. But in general, we're shipping out cocktail bases with the citrus, the salts, garnishes and herbs and such that play well with the spirit. And then a lot of times it's, we'll send out and say, this is going to pair great with a whiskey, but if you don't love it, here are other spirits that we suggest. And so our virtual events are really guests kind of bringing on their own spirits to match with our with our kit. But that's really what they all need is glass, ice, and the spirit, and everything else we provide.
Okay. All right. So that helps minimize the shipping and worrying about shipping alcohol and wine across the world or across the country.
Or sometimes we'll connect them with a local liquor store that can then ship directly.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense too. And have you done any events that are international and you've got people in different time zones?
Yeah.
We did one at the beginning of this year that was several sessions within it, but one of them was in London at 9 a.m. for them, which meant 4 o'clock in the morning for us.
Wow.
And so we got up at 3 a.m. And taught a cocktail at 4 a.m.
Yep.
It was a new one for us there.
It was.
But all of the guests were everywhere, so it almost didn't even matter because once people started popping on, it was, oh, I'm in Australia, oh, I'm in China, oh, I'm in
exactly.
London. And it's really fun to teach those types of experiences because people have such different ideas with their spirits, with what they enjoy, what they're used to, what is normal. And so for us, it's also a fun learning experience to see what everyone's drinking all around the world.
Yeah, because in your Japan, oh my gosh, what's that liquor that they drink in Japan?
What? Sake or
like soju?
Sake. Sake versus Guinness in Ireland and whiskey in Tennessee and what everybody drinks. But well, this is so intriguing, and I love the fact that it adds a different level of education. Again, going back to taking away that brown bar that we're used to, or even lighting up that brown bar with some video and stuff. But it kind of brings the Tom Cruise in there and adding it, but with the level of education versus the flipping around and having fun. So, especially in this world of virtual reality, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think people want, it was a time for it. It's just when you look at the food, industry and how now it's like everyone eats so well in the sense of having that exposure to what you want. So it's really cool in Washington, D.C., just looking at 30 years ago to now, and all of the great restaurants that we have here. For us, it was knowing that, seeing that elevated, you knew that from a cocktail world, people wanted that same level. So, if you're going to eat well, you want to drink well. And that curiosity for these interesting spirits and, flavors and such really, really was important in the beverage world.
That's so good to know. Because it's what we eat and drink is so important to our sanity as well as our nutritional value and being healthy. So, okay. So I always ask what everyone's favorite food and drink is. So can you both share?
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard one.
Yeah,
I
love
love to eat. So it's really hard to pinpoint. But I think
we basically design our cocktails when we're hungry.
Yeah, that's it. It's literally it. Some of the things people ask, why are you have a basil fennel tonic? And yeah, we were just really hungry. We looked in the fridge, that was in there.
But I love fennel tonic.
Oh yeah, it's our favorite. It's so good. We really figured it out. It's hard to get the fresh flavor of basil. That you then pasteurize and bottle and let it sit on a shelf, and we figure out this way, and it's awesome. It's so good with whiskey, with gin, with anything on its own. But no, I mean, for me, it's everything spicy. I think I love the spicier the drink, the better. The spicier the food, the better. I love things that are hot, So that's usually what I err. I know, exactly. Seriously.
Yeah. That's why it ended up in the gin.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm going to need that, right? Because I have two friends that love, one who grew up in, oh my gosh. No, I'm forgetting where she grew up, but she grew up with eating that every single day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, the gin is called Vigilant Navy Strength. It's not. It's a pretty boutique gin, but if you ever see it, it's pretty delicious. I can say. And I don't say that about everything that I make. I will tell you that right now. I'm very. That's my baby right there. That's very good.
Yeah.
So fun. All right, and T, didn't mean to cut you out of that.
What do I love? I mean, I'm Vietnamese, so I love everything kind of like, I love veggies. I love herbs. You know, in the Vietnamese cuisine, you really could eat in one meal and have a dozen different herbs in there. So I love kind of pulling that bitter to it, and I eat the way I drink, which is, not too sweet. So I don't think that I have a favorite food all the time. I'm always eating everything. But I do love complexity in my meals. So, and that's where, salts and certain things like that, a touch of salt, not too much of anything. But herbs are a big one. And that's why we see it so much in our drinks. Because anytime we make something, I'm like, what other herb can we throw in our cocktail?
Yeah, exactly.
I love that kind of
an herb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
People discount them. You just think about the herbs in the jars from the grocery store, but they really do add so much more flavor. Even salt and pepper, as herbs, add so much more to the food that you're eating, and you really don't think about that. So I love how
subtlety. Yeah, there's so many. I mean, bay leaf and cardamom, like those are things that people sometimes don't think of because it's got such a subtle flavor. It's not just like basil has obviously got a very specific flavor profile,
right.
But just putting a little bit of cardamom or bay leaf in there, it does add that level to it.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Okay. So how can everybody get a hold of you guys?
Cocktailcurations.com.
Okay.
And we're on social media. So at Cocktail Curations for Instagram and for Facebook. We're in Washington, D.C., but honestly, we do it everywhere. So we travel and we will find you virtually. So, definitely would love to kind of find everybody.
Doing what you do, you can do it virtually. You can do it anywhere. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you both so much for being
here.
I really appreciate it. And I'm sure everybody's learned some things about how to host a virtual event, and it's normal house going things.
Sorry.
It's okay. So I look forward to staying in touch and learning more from you about the different cocktails that we can make. So I appreciate it.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much. This was really fun.
And everybody, thank you for listening to the Eating at a Meeting live podcast. We are here every single Wednesday, and you can catch us, the reruns, on YouTube channel as well as on any podcast platform. Thanks for listening. Stay well and stay safe and eat well.
That is a good motto.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Have a great day, everyone.